Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show, the very first episode. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. I think I started a second too soon there, but welcome to the show. And hopefully you can see me, Danielle, and also Beth, our lovely first guest here today. Do you want to give a wave? Hi. Thanks for joining us, Beth. And thanks, everyone who's watching the very first episode of this weekly live web show that Socent and I have decided to start to kick off the new year and to create more opportunities for us change makers and social entrepreneurs to connect throughout the year. We already have some initiatives that bring people together across the world. The first being the Global Social Entrepreneurs Lab, which was kind of a fun side group that Socent and I started co-hosting a couple years ago now after we did some collaborations together. She also works with social entrepreneurs one-on-one doing consulting, and with her company Creators for Good, and myself with the sedge.org do more online workshops and trainings for social entrepreneurs. But these communities, mainly the Global Social Entrepreneurs Lab on Facebook, and also Changemakers Association, which is a more in-depth community for change makers that we launched about 6 months ago in the middle of 2016. Those are our collaborative projects, and we super love them because we love working together and we love connecting with people like Beth, who we have here today, and with people who might be watching right now live or maybe later watching the replay. Because I don't know about you guys, but I love learning from people who are along the same journey and connecting with people who have the same passions and interests in terms of finding really fantastic, sustainable ways to create amazing social and environmental impact. So that's what this is all about, just another way to get up close and personal with the people that are creating cool things in the world and learn from their experience and their perspective and get to know them as people. And that's kind of what this show is all about. And it might evolve as we go, but that's where we're starting out. So Socent is in the chat with us today too, so say hi. I actually don't have the full screen open, so I can't see the chat. I better open that as we go. But I want to introduce Beth here, who we'll be talking with for the next half hour or so. And we actually met Beth through the Global Social Entrepreneurs Lab, which is awesome. And you've been wonderfully active and participating and sharing what you're up to. And then when I looked a bit deeper into what you've been working on, I noticed that you've been working in social enterprise for 10 years already. And your newest venture is BAM Essentials, which we'll talk about a little bit, but also that you've been supporting social entrepreneurs and being involved in your community in Minnesota, getting the ecosystem going there to support social entrepreneurs locally. And so I'm just thrilled to have you here.
Great. Thanks so much for having me on. I'm excited to be the first guest here. That's great.
Awesome. So I wanted to start out with some kind of fun questions so we can get to know you a little bit better. So I would love to hear, what is your morning routine? How do you get started at the beginning of the day?
Yeah. Pretty much like most people, I'm sure. But one new thing that I've been doing this year, which is such great timing for that question, I started doing the 5-minute journal. So it's yeah. Do you know about this?
Yeah, I got one for my mom for Christmas, and she's been raving about it. And I actually decided to kind of steal their questions and do it in my own journal.
Right. Once I bought it, I was like, well, but it is a good format, and it is a good kind of formula for the morning. So basically, the 5-minute journal is 3 questions in the morning, 2 questions at night, and you reflect on what's coming up for the day and what went well during the day, and excuse me. And it's just a really nice way to stay kind of mindful and grounded. And so that's been really nice. That's first thing in the morning and right before you go to bed at night. But otherwise, that's been a good step in just being mindful and thoughtful about how I spend my time and what I'm thankful for.
Wonderful. Those you hear that as such a common best practice among people who are making a big splash in their life. And I guess it's a habit that takes some getting used to, but can make a big difference, right?
Right. Well, just day 11, so it's on my way to becoming a habit. But yeah, trying to make it work. So
awesome. Okay, so I have another kind of fun question for you, which is something that I don't know if we ask each other very often or even think about. Maybe this journaling reflection would help kind of frame some reflection on that. But how do you hope that people will remember you after you're gone, or your work, or your impact? What do you hope kind of sticks with people about who you are?
Yeah. When I was so I've been involved in social enterprise for about 10 years, and something that I've kind of struggled with is not feeling like I don't have enough impact. And I think social entrepreneurs feel like that. All of us feel like that at some point, that it's even though we're doing a lot and it's more than most people do, it's not enough, and that like hunger and eagerness to do more. So I guess I would hope that people meeting me would leave saying, oh, I can do something, and I can be a part of that. One way that I'm trying to address that is with a blog that I started recently called Social Good Impact, and supporting social entrepreneurs in that journey, developing tools and resources and mindfulness practices for social entrepreneurs to kind of replicate their impact, feel good about the impact they're making, and always push to do more. So I hope I would leave people with a feeling of, I can do something, and I can be a part of social enterprise without necessarily being the entrepreneur. Doesn't mean that everyone needs to start something new, but everyone can participate in an ethical economy in some fashion. So.
Mm-hmm. Great. And actually, that's a good segue to my next question, which is, tell us about your vision for a better world. Like, what gets you up out of bed in the morning, besides your 5-minute journal?
Yeah, I have to do it.
What is kind of that driving force that you're working towards on the impact side?
Yeah, without getting religious or anything, I've been reading a lot about Buddhism and studying that philosophy, we'll call it. I think my calling is in relieving suffering, which is part of the Buddhism philosophy. And whether that's relieving suffering of humans or the planet, or other forms of suffering, we're all suffering in some way. And so the more that I can do to relieve that suffering, that's what gets me out of bed in the morning. So always working toward that sense of relief.
Yeah, that's great. Actually, that's a nice way to kind of distill down a lot of impactful initiatives that I think, I like that way of thinking about it, to look for that relief of suffering.
Yeah. I think it's been 10 years in the making of being involved in social enterprise. And when I first got involved was about 2006 or so, and started at a Goodwill that's in Minnesota here. I'm based in Minnesota, and writing business plans and new earned income ideas for Goodwill here. And at the time, there wasn't a ton of support for social entrepreneurs, not even a lot of resources or information, not a real clear definition. And I think that's even still being debated, depending on where you are. And so just not a lot of concrete stuff. And now in 2017, it seems like that has just really exploded. And there's individuals doing great support for social entrepreneurs, like you and Solen, and many others. And so it's been fun to see that like transformation of the sector over 10 or 11 years or so since I've been involved. So.
Yeah, 100%. I am with you on that. And it's changed so much. It's changing rapidly. It's so much fun to be a part of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, fun question. If you had $1 million dropped off at your door tomorrow, what would you do with it?
Yeah. What would you do with it? I would love to do something related to microloans.
Yeah.
I haven't been involved in that side of social entrepreneurship, but I think with $1 million, I could do a lot in terms of microloans. So that's really where I'm going within the social enterprise field, is how can I replicate and do 10 times, like the 10x theory. How can I do 10 times more than I have been doing? And that would be one way to do that, through microloans.
Wonderful. Yeah, to leverage it. That would be kind of where my answer would go too, because I love the idea of taking a resource and using it as an asset, not as something that's going to disappear over time. So to kind of take that pool and 10x it, like you said, in some way.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about your work with BAM Essentials, which is the social enterprise that you're running now. And actually, I forgot to say in my intro that before BAM, you also managed another social enterprise in your city, which sounds really cool, empowering youth with coffee products and services. Right. And then BAM Essentials is empowering women, right? With training and skills and creating body products.
Right. Exactly. You got it. So yeah, a little brief bio. I've been involved in social enterprise since 2006. Most recently was running City Kid Java. So they're a wholesale coffee company based in Minneapolis here, selling to cafes and corporate cafeterias. The Twin Cities in Minnesota has a lot of Fortune 500 companies. So a great place to sell socially minded coffee. And then retail stores as well throughout the state. And so selling coffee is the product. That's the business side. And then the profits from that would go to fund youth programs in Minneapolis. So we were owned by a nonprofit organization, and they had after school programs, sports, music programs, tutoring, that type of thing. So City Kid Java, will link to it in the description. I'll send you a link. Mm-hmm. I left there due to a strategic planning process. I actually eliminated my position there, and so we can talk more about that at some point. But so I left, and I left it in very capable, good hands. It was tough to leave because it was I love coffee. I have my travel mug here. I love coffee. Loved the mission. Did a lot of great things for the organization. Started up their youth employment program. So actually employing young people in doing coffee samplings and sales and marketing for the company, which is great. Left it in very capable hands. They're making money and they're serving kids. So it's in great shape now. And left there and thought about what to do next. One of the things that I had gathered through kind of informal interviews and research while I was at City Kid Java was the lack of training programs for young women after they leave high school age. So nonprofits are traditionally really great at serving specific age groups. So if you're in middle school or in high school, you fit into this little bucket and you can be a part of our program. But once that ends, once you graduate, there wasn't a lot of that program support for young women, and specifically from disadvantaged backgrounds, either being poverty, homelessness, trafficking, those types of things, right? And so I started BAM Essentials based on that need for training programs. And also I had been making my own personal care products for about 7 years, just as a fun hobby, working with natural and organic ingredients and essential oils. making things like organic lotion, deodorant. I'm actually looking at some of the product now. Roll-on scents with essential oils that help you feel a certain way, and taking chemicals out of the daily routine. So taking kind of two of those buckets, right? So the need for training programs for young women, and my passion and interest in organic personal care products and created BAM Essentials. Started it with my own funding. So no outside investors, no grants, just started it up last year. No, the year before, 2015. Started in 2015. I've employed one young woman so far. So she's the only one who's gotten paid from the business. But it's been a fun about a year. Yeah, about a year and a half now. So about that amount of time, and it's been fun to do. So I've got that going. I also started Social Good Impact, I mentioned before, as a resource for social entrepreneurs. And so that's in the works, in the development kind of stage, but tools and resources around business planning, project management, and mindfulness for social entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. So I've got that going too. And I've got a day job right now. So a lot of stuff.
Busy.
Yeah, a lot of stuff.
So I'd love to ask more, to dig into kind of your experience and learning from City Kid Java to BAM, and maybe how your biggest takeaway or challenge as a result of running kind of an established social enterprise with City Kid Java, and improving it and leaving them in a great cash flow state, which is amazing. And working yourself out of a job is a fun goal as a social entrepreneur, I think.
For sure.
It's a little bit different in that case because it was still running. But so yeah, your biggest learning there, and then how you used that experience to help kickstart BAM, or did it really make a big difference in your strategy or your thinking, or avoiding pitfalls with BAM Essentials too?
For sure, absolutely, yeah. So some of I learned a ton at City Kid Java. That was a huge learning experience for me. It was the first time that I got to lead a larger team. By larger, I mean 7 people. I had led small groups and small staffs of 2 to 3 before, but to have 7 people was different. And so I learned a ton there, just about interpersonal relationships and motivations and needs of employees, and that type of thing. But also about the business itself. So when I started at City Kid Java, I had already finished my MBA. So I had my undergrad is in business from the Carlson School at the University of Minnesota. And then I got my MBA, finished that up in 2011. And so I had quite a bit of business experience in the classroom on the academic side, but you just learn so much about day-to-day operations by being in a functioning business. So just a ton about legal requirements, about doing business with large Fortune 500 retailers. Lots of learning there. And I really got to grow into what a social enterprise leader, what's expected of a social enterprise leader, I think. And taking some of those learnings for sure impacted BAM Essentials. When I was, sorry, I'm getting over a cold, and so is Danielle. So
we're kind of coffee and
coffee breaks. That's why. So tons of learning with writing the BAM Essentials business plan. And I did write a full business plan for it. I didn't want to go blindly into something. And so I did take that time, and really took about 9 months of free time in writing a really full business plan. So I wanted to really take that time and think about it and incorporate all of the things that I had learned from previous jobs, including the formal and informal interviews I'd had with the young women who were looking for training, a job, and resources that a social enterprise could provide. And so that inspiration and a couple of specific conversations that I'm recalling really helped to stay grounded while I was writing that business plan.
That's so cool to hear that you actually sat down and did the full business plan, even though you weren't going for funding or financing, or even, had a board to speak to. But I think there is a lot of value in it. And I guess it's in moderation, right? Whether you can go too far down the business planning route and not go do those interviews that gave you so much information, or, not actually get started. So it sounds like you balanced that really well, and to use it as an opportunity to synthesize everything you had learned and been doing and realizing, and have it all in one spot. That sounds pretty cool. And so was it helpful as you got started in the first year? Did you find yourself going back to it? And
oh yeah, and it's changed for sure. And I think looking back, I'm really glad I did a business plan, because I was able to use that document when I was talking about the business to potential partners, to just anyone who was interested, even potential retail partners, that type of thing.
Right. Okay.
I was able to use kind of that document to talk about it. But it certainly changed since then. And the thing looking back is I wish I would have started sales sooner. I think I did, and it was because I was balancing a lot of things at the time. But I think starting sales sooner and having sales to point to as I was developing the business plan would have been preferred. So that's definitely something I learned during that process, is to be planning and doing at the same time. That's what I would have done.
Right. Yeah. That makes total sense. So it was helpful, but it still may have delayed some of the action a little bit looking back, right? And
absolutely.
I think that's the thing when you're in that spot getting started, you feel like I need to map everything out, and it is really helpful, but you don't want it to stop you from taking action.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
No business plan survives first contact with customer either. So you want it to evolve as you go.
Right. Yep. Yeah.
So I'd love to ask you a little bit about kind of the inner game and your mindset around your beliefs or approach to social enterprise, leading either an established social enterprise or starting a new one, or supporting social entrepreneurs. Are there one or two key mindsets or beliefs that you have that you think are really make a big difference for you, or give you kind of that extra edge in terms of being confident and moving forward with things?
Yeah. Thinking about the social enterprise as a business is where I've seen social enterprises fail because they don't think like a business. And that sounds super harsh, like that you have to think like, and I'm not saying you have to think like a Fortune 500, but you have to be business minded. You have to be solving a problem for your customer. And you have to be priced competitively, customer service competitive, competitive on all of the same fronts that a normal for-profit business would be, and then have the added bonus of the social side or the social give back. So I've seen social enterprises fail because they don't have that mindset, and they think that that their social enterprise can survive just on the mission alone. And so that's really tough. So having that business mindset, and I think my background in education in business has helped with that. So yeah, and I think having the mission part of the social enterprise baked into the business is important. So whether it's employing people from disadvantaged backgrounds in some way, or the inputs that come into your social enterprise being ethically sourced, or what have you. So that ethical component baked in is important to remaining a social enterprise. If you don't have it baked in, it's easy to become just a business as opposed to a social enterprise. A couple of the things that I've seen really make a difference for social enterprises that do well are good margin, so really healthy gross margin, and knowing what that is and how to calculate that.
Knowing the
So healthy gross margin and understanding cash flow, healthy cash flow. So those two kind of tactical things have really made a difference too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so great. And I love talking to more and more social entrepreneurs and asking them questions like that about kind of best practice or what's the biggest thing that you think makes a difference, and hearing similar responses over and over. Like, I think there's enough experimentation happening and enough conversation happening now that we can point to some of these really key things that social entrepreneurs need to be aware of and think about, like baking the mission in and thinking of it like a business and knowing your numbers. Like, these things are so important, and we're starting to see it as a pattern of it's important for every social enterprise. It's not just a one-off experience, right?
Right. Exactly.
So,
couldn't agree more.
That's awesome. Now, I just want to check the questions really quickly to see if we have some audience questions, because we have some people watching, which is great. And Solen's in the chat.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Fanny. Hi, Solen. Hi, Helen. Great. We don't have a specific question yet, but if you guys have one, let us know in the chat. I think I forgot to say that at the beginning, that at the near the end of every show, we really would love to have people watching ask their questions as well, so that we can dive into some of those topics that are top of mind for people, right, as we're chatting. So one thing I wanted to ask was, when when is it that you feel really in flow with your work or really fired up about the work that you're doing? Like, are there certain moments in your day where you just, pause and think, wow, this is so great. This is so awesome what I get to spend my time on. What are those moments that really keep you motivated and keep you inspired and keep you going?
Yeah. I haven't done a lot of direct service in my career. It's been mostly every position on the business side of a nonprofit or social enterprise. So I've held positions in finance, operations, marketing, HR, IT, kind of you name it on the business side. But the direct service side, I haven't had a lot of contact. And so depending on the business I'm working with, or now in my full-time job, I do get some of that interaction, and when I do, that's what sticks with me. So not even answering your question about flow, but that's
it's all related.
I think the part that keeps me going is having those conversations and having that real example and story helps me kind of stay motivated. That's that goes back to the relieving suffering kind of piece. When I feel like I'm in the flow is when I'm solving business problems that either increase revenue or decrease expenses. That's when I feel most helpful. I've done some consulting and business planning with a few clients, and when we're working through those issues one-on-one and thinking about solutions, that's where I feel like I'm in the groove, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and then it helps that business to survive and to serve more people and relieve more suffering. So yeah, so that's kind of when I'm most in the flow, solving problems.
Yeah, totally. Spoken like a true entrepreneur. Wonderful. So just checking in, I don't think we have any more questions, but I know what I wanted to ask you, because you'd be such a good person to share your insight on this, and you touched on it earlier, which is, as much as we want to bake impact into the business model, that's wonderful. But at times there's always going to be push comes to shove decision between impact and money. And so you talked about, solving problems on the costing or increasing the margins, and that's so important. But keeping that mission and impact center is so important as well. Yeah. So do you have some advice for people who might find themselves struggling with that push and pull, or how to manage that or think about it, or even a time when you had to deal with it, and what did you do?
Yeah. It's such a good question, because we did deal with that at City Kid Java, and I struggle with it with BAM Essentials too. I think there's a couple of things that come to mind. Starting small and starting somewhere is a good way to start. So starting small, even if it's just working with a few people or having a small environmental impact, whatever your impact is that you're working toward, but starting small and with something, at least then, you have the design thinking mindset of trying it out, maybe failing, maybe doing great, but at least you have some data to go on. Mm-hmm. And so I guess that's maybe the first point of starting small and starting somewhere. We did run into that at City Kid Java with our business. There were, customers that were not profitable for us. There were products that were not profitable for us and services that were not profitable for us. And we didn't have really anything on the social impact side to point to as success. And so a lot of my role there was taking away things that were not profitable and building in a manageable way the social impact side. So we did have to say goodbye to customers that were not profitable, which is super scary. And every social entrepreneur that watches this can probably relate to that. Saying goodbye to a customer is tough. Eliminating unprofitable product and service lines is tough. But we had to do that to make the most of what was profitable and build a social program at the same time. And we didn't start the social program employing 100 people. We started it with a handful, and it's grown from there, but that's what we could afford at the time. There were certainly conversations with the board about what we could afford to do on the social side and what we couldn't. And so it was a number of conversations over a few months about what having a social impact meant to the company and what we could reasonably accomplish. So it wasn't easy for sure, but it was a number of steps over a long period of time that got us to that point. So it's a series of good decisions that all led to it.
Yeah, it's so fascinating to hear about that, because it can be really challenging, but it's good to remind us that starting small is still worth doing, right? You don't need to go out with a bang or get it all figured out immediately. And that's kind of what I'm getting from your story, is that it's a process and it's not going to necessarily be solved overnight, and that's okay.
Right.
We just can work towards what we're trying to work towards, and that's the best you can do at any given moment, right? Is keep moving forward and progressing.
That's right. And everyone can have a part in that. So just imagine what the world would be like, right? If everyone was working toward relieving suffering for ourselves and each other. And so if each person has a small part of that, how cool would that be?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so Len asked a question that I think is a wonderful way to kind of start wrapping up, because we're getting to the end of our first show. And her question is, what is your 2017 goal or motto for the year? What is your kind of, what's driving you this year?
Yeah. What I wrote down on New Year's Day, so I actually spent New Year's Eve on the couch because I was sick, right? So Danielle and I have both been sick. I spent New Year's Eve on the couch watching the Minimalism movie on Netflix. So The Minimalist, if you haven't watched that yet, and reading about Buddhism. That was my New Year's Eve. And
sounds wonderful.
It was pretty nice, actually. And spent New Year's Day making a list of goals and resolutions. First time I've done that in my whole life, but I did this year for some reason because I was sick, and wrote the word intention at the top. And so intention is kind of my word of the year, living with intention, being intentional about how I spend my time, specifically, and I have some goals around that, and intentional about my thinking. So intention is my word of the year. Yeah.
I love that. That's so
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah, thanks.
Great. So Beth, where can people get in touch with you or find you in the interwebs? And we'll make some notes below the show, but if you just want to mention that, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I'm all over the internet. So you can find me at bamessentials.org. That's the BAM Essentials Organic Personal Care Products. There's a contact page there. There's also a shop, so you can shop around there. You can find me at socialgoodimpact.com. socialgoodimpact.com. There's a contact form there. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on the Global Social Entrepreneur Lab Facebook group. Yeah, any of those places. I tend to do like weird little Snapchat sometimes. So if you see one of those with my face, that's me. Any of those methods are great, and try to get back to people as soon as I can. But all of those have a contact form. Definitely find me on LinkedIn, Beth Palm there. And yeah, love to connect with everyone. The other quick thing that I'd like to plug, if I can, if you're on Twitter, find me there. I'm Bam Palm personally on Twitter, or Social Good I am on Twitter. But we are starting up the Socent chat next week. This was a previous Twitter chat that had been going on and kind of fizzled out. And so I'm starting that back up with a couple of other social entrepreneurs. And our first topic is on defining social enterprise around the world. So I'd love for everyone to tune in if you can. It's a week-long Twitter chat. You can tune in anytime next week just by following the hashtag SocentChat. So SocentChat. Socent Chat on Twitter, and take part in the questions, follow like-minded people, share your insights, and would love to see everyone there too.
Awesome. That's great. I'll definitely check that out next week.
Great.
And we did, so I know we're a bit over our time, but since it's the first one, I kind of prepped us for maybe going over the 30 minutes. And I would love to answer Fanny's question, because the question came in just in the last couple minutes here. So
great.
She asks, what advice would you give to overcome people who are skeptical, overcome is in quotes, people who are skeptical about what you create? Just let them go or try to explain. So do you give energy to the haters or how do you handle them? The skeptics, I should say. Haters is too strong.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely been those instances. I've just a quick story. One of my previous positions, I actually had a coworker say about social enterprise. They said, "Oh, that business, you're just trying to make money off of poor people." And that kind of mindset was really startling. And so I don't know if that's helpful to answer her question, but there's certainly people like that out there, and that's stuck with me. So I try not to take it. I took it negatively at the time, like, holy crap, that's the
wow,
opposite.
Yeah.
That's so the opposite of what social enterprise is trying to do. But it stuck with me because it makes me remember that not everyone knows what social enterprise is. So there's some education that needs to happen kind of on the front end to explain it. Yeah, I mean, there's haters out there. You can't let them get to you. Sometimes they do, and you have to try to move on in the way you can. I would say educate. There's still going to be people that don't get it, and if they don't, that's okay. Hopefully they get it later.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it, because it's almost a balance, right? You don't want to dismiss them too soon, because it is an opportunity to have that conversation, and to maybe it's a misunderstanding or a misrepresentation that you can help clear up. But at the same time, you don't want to give it so much energy that it starts to drain you, or if it's not going anywhere, then, you tried, but don't let it bother you, maybe. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
That's tough, though.
but we're human. So sometimes it does bother us, and
Yeah.
talking about it and sharing it and saying, gosh, yeah, that really bothered me. And why is it bothering me so much? But having that like personal reflection time is good too. I run a monthly women's social entrepreneur group in Minnesota. There's a couple of us that get together every month and share that kind of stuff, just to get it off of our minds and stay grounded with each other. And that's been a huge help. It's myself and 4 other really amazing women that are part of that. And having that that kind of group to share that with has been really great.
Yeah, that's such a good point, because that community can help so much in terms of staying grounded, just talking things through, right? And Solène is reminding us in the chat, when you get a negative comment, it's more about them than what you do, which is totally true.
For
right?
sure, absolutely.
And it's hard to remember sometimes, but that's why you need your peers to go like, I can't believe this person said this, and we had this conversation, and they can, remind you it's okay, like they have their own thing, and you're doing your thing, it's okay.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so, well, that was really, really fun.
So fun.
Yeah, thanks, Beth.
Thanks so much. Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. It's been fun to talk with you.
Yeah, it's been wonderful. So just to wrap things up, I want to mention that, to everyone watching live or who's going to watch us later, thanks for tuning in to the very first show, brought to you by Global Social Entrepreneurs Lab and Changemakers Association, 2 projects of Solène and I, and only made possible because of all of the amazing people like Beth and other changemakers that have decided to engage and have these conversations and hang out together. So we're so appreciative of you guys for making this all what it is, and for having these wonderful conversations with us, and keep the learning and the knowledge exchange going. So if you got the link to the show, that means you are on the subscription list, which means you'll get the link each week to the new episode. And some weeks we'll take breaks here and there, but in general, it'll be every week is what we're striving for. But if you found the video on YouTube after the fact, or floating around the internet, and you want to stay in touch with us, you can go to globalsocentlab.com/show, and that's where you can subscribe to get all the goodies and the updates about people like Beth, who are joining us to share their wisdom and insight, and it's been really fun. So thanks, everyone. And Helen, we will put the Twitter links in the description here. Yeah, Solène's got them for you. So thank you guys so much for joining, and we'll talk soon.
Great.
Bye. Bye.